I love that this cover matches the colors of the show. It matches the red and black. It's an incredible cover. Um, I also want to say I want to thank you formally for acknowledging how scary horses are. Okay.
So yeah, here's the thing. Behind every one of my books, I work my own personal fears into them, and I am terrified of horses. Always have been. Don't go near them. I just find them incredibly intimidating. I have friends who are really big horse lovers and own horses, and they think I'm silly, and they say I just don't understand. And I understand their beauty, and they are majestic, amazing, beautiful creatures, but they terrify me. Their teeth, they have these enormous teeth, and they're just so powerful. And yeah,
They're terrified.
afraid.
You're preaching to the choir here. I I admire horses in the same way that I admire like a Nile crocodile. I'm not going to get anywhere near it. It looks real neat. It's a cool thing. Like nature's awesome. I don't want to get close to that. It's like a hippo. Again, they're incredibly monstrous. They're monsters. Horses are monsters. And horses are which you don't know. That's not I wouldn't say that's the overarching theme of Stay Buried, but it's present. Before I get into questions, can you give our dear listeners at home like a quick elevator pitch for Stay Buried, which is out now? I should say we're in the future when this episode drops. Stay Buried is out. You can go buy it, so you should do that. I really enjoyed it. But Jennifer, could you give us like a paragraph about what the book is?
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks for having me. First of all, I'm so excited to be here and so excited to talk about this book. So Stay Buried is my take on a folk horror novel. It has two storylines. There's one in 1919 where we follow Frankie, who is this young queer woman who is the assistant of her uncle, the town doctor, in this little isolated town in Boones Ferry, Vermont. And there's a mysterious illness in town, and people are blaming supernatural forces and maybe saying the devil has come to Boones Ferry. And then we have the present day storyline, which takes place in 2016, where Ashley and her brother Malcolm have just inherited their great grandfather, the town doctor's home in Boones Ferry, and they come to town to Boones Ferry and start unearthing all of these strange goings on in town that are somehow linked to what happened all those years ago when Frankie was
Right.
around. Yeah.
Right.
So I was a sucker for the dual timeline thing. I love it. I had so much fun. I had so much fun researching this book and learning about small town life in the 1918, 1919, and yeah, it was a lot. And I actually, because of the way I work, I have this chaotic way that I want to talk about. I want to get into this chaotic way I work and the pros and cons of the way I work. So the first idea for this book came to me way back in 2015. Like I had a dream about a small town where there was
You're one of those. I had a dream.
I had a dream,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen
Yeah.
with every book, but a lot of so I'm a big believer in writing down your dreams, even if you just have a little fragment. Write it down and then do some journaling in the morning. I do morning pages every morning, and inevitably I end up, writing a scrap or two about like something I remember from my dream, and that will spark something else. So yeah, I had this dream that inspired the idea, but that was back in 2015. That was a long time ago, right?
It was a long time ago.
It was a really long time ago. So in 2016, I start writing this book, and I'm writing it, and I'm like, oh, I've got this idea, and there's going to be a small town in Vermont, and it's during the influenza pandemic in 1918. So I do all this hardcore research into what that looked like in little towns in Vermont and little towns kind of all over New England and all over the country. And I'm reading journals and diary entries from doctors and townspeople. But my idea is, what if the flu came and hit this one town so hard that it knocked out like a huge percentage of the population? But what if it wasn't really the flu? What if it was something else? Dun dun dun. So I started
Dun, dun.
dun dun dun, and so I'm writing away, and I just got stuck because I get stuck. I get stuck a lot. I'm not a plotter or planner. I am a total pantser, and I dive into something with all this passion and all these ideas, and then I hit a wall because I'm like, where the hell is this going? And that's exactly what happened with this book. I came out, I ended up having a really messy first draft, but it was just a mess. And I had the backstory all told from the town doctor, Dr. Endicott's point of view. And it was kind of dry and boring. and the book just was not coming together. So I did what I always do, and I was like, well, I don't know what, something's missing, something's not right. I'm going to just put it away. So I put it away, and I worked on other things, and I wrote some other books, and I did some other stuff. And I just pulled it forward again when I started, I'm like, I was at the time, I am no longer, because it kills my soul, a news junkie. And I started hearing about this strange virus going on, and this thing
Oh
happened.
yeah.
And I'm looking at the news, and it's 2020, and I'm like, oh my God. And I had been doing this, I had spent so long doing this deep dive into like pandemics and illnesses that, how the world is definitely going to end from an illness from an animal. And I'm seeing these headlines, and I'm like, this is it. The world is ending. We are so screwed. You people don't even know how screwed we are. I know how screwed we are. I know. I get it. I'm terrified.
I know. I wrote about horses.
I was like, I can't work on this now because this is too real. This is too much. So I put it away again. I was like, no, I can't.
Oh my.
Put it away again. Work on some other stuff. And so it just, and it kept sort of resurfacing. And then like years later, my partner Drea asked me, she's like, whatever happened to that awesome book you were writing that like had the 1918 storyline and had the creepy horse stuff and the creepy Knackerman guy in it. And I was like,
the Knackerman. We're gonna talk about the Knackerman. I have questions about the Knackerman.
The Knackerman book, and so I let her read it, and she read it, and she's like, oh, you should do something with this. And then the thing I love most about Drea is she is my first reader all the time, and she gives me this new no BS answer about everything. And she read it, and she's like, this Dr. Endicott storyline has to go. She's like, the story is interesting, and like it's really well researched, and it has all this really good information, but his voice is just way off. And she was like, you need a young woman, because that's what you do. You need a girl or a young woman telling this. What if he has a daughter or a niece or a protege? And just like that, I'm like, the character of Frankie came to me, who was Dr. Endicott's niece. And I just had her instantly, and she was what had been missing all those years. And she was the thing that made the whole book fall into place.
I was going to say that the amount, since I've known you, I think this was like in the works. You were like in the process of getting it ready for publishing, and you were talking about it, how it's been in hell and trying to through all this time. And then then I read in the afterward, you're like, oh yeah, I wrote this before COVID, and I researched, animal to human disease and all this stuff. And my first question, I think, ties into Frankie. Because you mentioned the dual timelines, we have, in the distant past and relatively recent past, pre-COVID, which I think, I don't think you could. I don't know if what this book looks like, if that is post-COVID timeline, 2026. I think it makes it a little easier, less, I guess. I don't know. It's a different book, I think, if you write that timeline in 2026.
Yeah, and that was something we talked about. Like my editor and I talked about it. She was like, "Why are we keeping it in 2016? And can we move it forward to now?" And I was like, "I don't think we can. I don't think it's the same book. Exactly like what you were saying. I don't think it's the same book. And also, it would kill my. I thought about it, and it would kill the whole timeline and the character of Graham. Like there's no way someone would be old enough to have been born back then. And
there's this
beats."
This book makes you. I was doing math the entire time, because like there's a lot of mystery, a lot of questions of identities, and I'm like, how old would these people be? I'm like, conceivably I'm like, who is Graham? Is she 96? I don't know. Is she lying? Is she older? Is she younger? I'm like, I need to know. I was like doing the math in my head for every character. I'm like, how old would they be?
I love that you were doing that. I'm not a math person. I'm a writer. I'm not a math person. But I was writing notes down and doing I was not doing it in my head. I love that. No, I totally had a whole timeline. I did all my careful math because I didn't want to screw it up, because I knew some very astute reader like yourself would catch it and be like, oh no, there's no way she's alive then, and there's no way this person could be that. And so I had to.
It was more like, I also have questions about mystery that we will get to. So my first question really it ties into Frankie, and then even to Minnie. And I think you alluded to it a little bit about using, when a previous draft had Dr. Endicott as that primary perspective in the past and you switch it over to Frankie. But why Frankie? Why Minnie? Those like Ashley feels so obvious. Like she's driven. She's trying to investigate her mother's disappearance. She has the inheritance. She has a connection with her grandmother. But Frankie and Minnie, why those two in particular? Why, like, it's again, you mentioned already, young girls. You need a girl. You need a young woman. Why those two? Do you have that like an answer in your head? Like it's why those need to be those perspectives?
I don't know that I have an answer in my head for that. I do know, like I was saying, like when I had the whole backstory told from the town from Dr. Endicott's point of view, it just felt so dull. And this is a recurring problem with me in my life is that I have a real hard time writing straight male characters, and they always turn out dull and not very exciting, and nothing's really, the voice just isn't alive to me in the way that the voice of a young woman or girl is. And when I came up after Drea said, what if you put, a young woman or girl telling the story? And I started thinking about it, and I came up with the character of Frankie. She just hit me so hard, and I started writing it from her point of view, and it just fit. I don't know, it just felt authentic to the story. And I think that sometimes I get this idea that a story should be a certain way and should be told in a certain way, and I'm not trusting the process. I'm like putting my preconceived, well, it's got to be the story told by a medical person. Our doctor is going to tell it, and he is of course going to be a man, and he's going to tell us all these facts, and it's going to be scary. But I had to let go of that and ask who needs to, who wants to, whose story is this really? And then when I came up with her character, it just felt like this magical, like, this is it. This is the missing piece. It's her voice that is going to make this whole story come to life. And she's my secret doorway into the story. And
I love Frankie. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And I felt like it was important because ultimately I think it's a story about outsiders and like the terrible things that a small town can do to someone who's different. And who better to tell that story than someone who is an outsider and who is different and who is like questioned by the people in town and looked at askance, like, oh, it's that weird Frankie girl who dresses in her uncle's cast off clothing and she's secretly having
smokes pipes.
Smokes pipes and she drinks with the men in the pub and and she, at one point she says that it's a gift she has to be able to slip between the two worlds. Like she can go into a kitchen and make pies with the women and listen to their gossip, and she can go to the pub and smoke and drink with the men and listen to their stories. And she isn't accepted in either group, but she can go between them. And so she picks up on stuff and she knows things that other people don't know.
And I mean, she keeps notebooks. She is that kind of very inquisitive character as well. And frankly, Frankie is, that was not intended, but it did happen. She makes Dr. Endicott a much more interesting character too to me. Her presence.
Absolutely.
Because when he is quite willing to, like, no, he teaches her, accepts her for who she is. And watching out for her like she was his daughter, like that he's much more interesting character than if he was just Dr. Man investigating weird stuff.
Yeah, no, he is just fully accepting her for who and what she is, and he's like, he smokes a pipe with her at the end of the day. He talks to her like another human being.
Right.
She's at the age where her friends she grew up with are all being married off, and there's no talk of that. No one's going to marry Frankie off. She's and he said, I need you to stay with me and keep helping. You're a huge help to me, and you're incredibly bright. He relies on her, and they just have a great relationship.
I'm not gonna. We're gonna avoid spoilers. Obviously, this book but when this just came out, so I'm not gonna ask questions that would spoil certain things that happen in the book that I really want to ask you about, or at least talk to you about. But maybe I'll do that later. So I'm trying to. There is a, and well, I guess here this is another question that's gonna dance around spoilers a little bit.
Okay.
Because the book is, it's not, I don't know, it's very mysterious. It's filled with lots of questions because in both storylines, both timelines, we're trying to figure out what's going on. Both us, the reader, and our main characters, the two primary, even Minnie in she's also the little what 11-year-old girl
She's
is
an
trying to,
investigative agent. Yes.
yeah, she's a little she reminded me of what's that YA book, they made a movie about it in the 90s, Michelle Trachtenberg, can't remember the name, but she reminded me of like a plucky YA, like she could be in like a much more pleasant book and not necessarily be out of place, but she just happens to be in a folk horror story where everything's going horribly wrong. um they're trying to solve questions, they're trying to answer questions, solve mysteries, figure out stuff, and we as readers are also doing that. So there is, in like, as I was going on reading the book and kind of going, following, trying to solve the mystery myself, I'm in, like, I think as any writer reading a book is going to probably be slightly more equipped to figure out what's going on. Like, one is, how much supernatural element is this? Is there, we're going to talk about, also we're going to talk about Rules for the Ghost. We're going to talk about Rules for the Ghost at some point in this podcast. But I'm going, well, I'm going, well, I want to know what happens to these characters, but also, like, what is Jennifer doing? What is she doing? As we're tracing through this story, what is she giving me? What is she not? Like, it's well, and it's like that question of how much do you give a reader? You don't want to give them, you want to keep them reading, so you can't give them nothing. You have to give them some stuff, but you have to be fair to them. You can't cheat. So, and at certain points in the story, like, you start up with this big, wide possibility space of what could be happening. Is it magic? Is it a ghost? Is it, is it just disease? Is it like, it's like, what's the actual answer to any of this stuff? And as the story goes on, it stays pretty broad. And as we get closer to the end of the story, possibility space collapses because we winnow down what are the answers. So how do you, and this is a question I ask because I am facing it, as that possibility space narrows and what's a possible answer to mysteries narrows, how do you continue balancing surprising a reader, keeping them like, oh wow, I didn't expect that to be the thing, versus while, like, balancing with, I have to be true to this story, I can't, and be fair to what I want the truth to be, what the truth is in my story. How do you balance those two things? Because you need to surprise the reader, but you also can't just throw crazy stuff in at the end, because that's not easy to do. It's easy to surprise the reader with nonsense. How do you balance those two things? Is that come through? Is that all revisions? Is that just instinct? Is that, oh, I have a very good editor and a very good, you've already mentioned your partner, a bunch of people reading the book and telling me, you need to prolong tension here and suspend disbelief here and things like that?
Robbie, it is all of the above.
Okay, all right. It's hard and complicated, you mean? Okay, good.
Complicated, like all so much of what we do, it's hard and complicated. There is no simple answer. There is no, I'm not going to, like, sit here and give you a formula to, like,
Right.
oh,
No, I don't expect one. It's more like,
no, it's
things
hard.
that help.
And this particular book was so hard. This particular book was just like, it was a bear. It took me forever to write. And it took me forever to edit, and I had two wonderful editors helping me, and I had my partner, and I had my agent, and I had all these people giving me input, and it just stayed a mess. It stayed a mess for a long time, and finally, with everyone's help, I started to see the light through the trees and figure out just what the hell was going on. And I think that part of it staying a mess was, again, what I was talking about earlier, was sometimes I feel like I get these preconceived notions about what the book is and what the story wants, what the story should be versus what it wants to be. And a lot of the writing process for me personally is about letting go, right? It's about, like, letting go of all that and just, like, channeling the characters and seeing where naturally this story is supposed to go. Like, I had no idea. Like, when I was writing this, I had no idea what was going to happen at the end. Is it supernatural? Is it not? Is it the people in town? Is it a combination? Is there like a weird medical thing going? Like, what's happening? Is it a combination of everything? I didn't know. I had to write to find out. And that's for me when the writing is most exciting. Is when I'm writing to find out, when I don't know what's going to happen next. That's what gets my butt in the chair every day to sit down and type the next chapter. But making it all work, man, making it all work is hard, right? Making it all work is really hard. And I've said I am not a plotter. I'm a total pantser. I don't outline, but I do outline once I've got my completely messy, horrible draft. Then I have to, because if I'm writing something that's complicated, then this was a complicated book to write. I had
it's very, very, very intricate. It's very like I feel like even you don't have to be a writer to see that, but I'm looking at this, I'm like, this feels impossible. It feels like because you're juggling multiple perspectives in multiple timelines. I'm like, it was hard
book, and it was. So I'm a big fan of colored index cards, and I use those like crazy, so I do outline and I do plot just later in the process to make sure that things are making sense, and to make sure I'm putting in those clues, and make sure I'm not giving readers this pile of BS that doesn't go anywhere. Like, everything has to matter in the story, right? Like, everything has to, at the end of the story, I want people to look back and be like, oh my God, that all makes sense. That's why that happened. And this led to that. And, okay. And it has to feel true. But, in order to do that, it's work. It's a lot of colored index cards. It's a lot of rearranging those colored cards. It's a lot of, and like, making sure that it's like the two storylines, the past and the long ago past, and then the current day storyline, like they flow, right? Like, I don't want people to pulled out of one and be in the other and be jarred and be like, oh, I hate this one. I wish I could just go back, and I wish the whole book was about Frankie. And I wanted them both. I wanted a good balance, right? And so
I would take a whole book just with Frankie. Frankly, I mean, I would have a book with Frankie even when others. It could just be like, you could write a lit fic book that's just Frankie, and I think I would still really like that. It would just be like Frankie navigating her life without a monster, without this. Like, there probably would be disease that, like, it could be literally here. My soft pitch, right? An alternate reality where it's just Frankie dealing with the Spanish flu outbreak. Yeah, no, and she still has conflict and hardship, but there's no folk horror stuff going on. I would love that. I think that would still be great. Okay, questions. I have questions for you. There's a particular spot. This is relatively early. My Kindle says it's 20% of the way through the book, so it's pretty early still. And Minnie, it's I think one of the first chapters with Minnie, and she asks a question about the Knacker Man to her mom, and this is both for her because she's a child, but it's also for us. It's that useful, like a perspective character that doesn't know things, so she'll ask questions for us. And she asks her mom, is he good or evil? And she says he's the Knacker Man. She deflects. She doesn't answer the question. So is that, and I've already kind of alluded to, that role Minnie plays, but is that question for the reader as much is for Minnie? Is that, and when you're writing that kind of thing, is it always, you're always writing something that is both for Minnie and for us?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, Minnie was another perspective. She was another doorway into the story. I wanted to have someone who was already there in town in the present day before Ash and Malcolm got there. I wanted someone there, and at first I was like, oh, it'll be an adult. And then no, and then I'm me. I'm a sucker for those young, quirky, misfit girls who know too much and are inquisitive and want to know what the heck is going on, and they're their own little investigating engines. And so her voice and her storyline just came to me from the beginning. I was like, well, she's there, of course, and she's going to be in trouble right away because she's going to have broken one of the. She will have grown up with this like myth about the Knacker Man, and one of the big rules about the Knacker Man is you're not ever supposed to try to see the Knacker Man. You're supposed to. He comes on the full moons, and you're supposed to stay in your house and hide and close the shades and never try to see. And immediately, when we first meet her, she says, "I'm going to break the rule. I'm going to go try to see him."
Gonna go see the Knacker Man.
Gonna go see him, and then all kinds of trouble from that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we do get Willie. We get a little bit of Willie.
We do get Willie, and Willie was a tough one because I thought Willie. I had a lot of Willie sections in the early draft. Willie took up more of the book, and then I thought about getting rid of Willie entirely. And my editor and I had a conversation about like, do we need Willie? I don't know. But I love Willie.
I like Willie a lot. Willie's great. And when you talk, you're like, when you said, "Oh, I can't write a straight man," I'm like, that's what Willie is. Willie's great, but you just got to give him lots of problems. You saddle him with him with trauma. That's the secret.
I think that's a secret. Maybe I can write straight white men if I just saddle them with lots of trauma and make them alcoholics.
That's kind of just the trick all the time.
If they're a hot mess, I can do it. I'm in. I've got this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what. Again, I would take you could write a whole book with just Willie. Again, it doesn't have to be a horror book at all. Willie is. Yeah. He's just, he's a really sad. He's sad Willie. He literally is a sad Willie.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, this is a very, very granular question, and you might not have an answer for me. But I want to know because it jumped out at me, and it's like, I don't know. It's a very like when people do interviews about craft, they very rarely do like questions about singular lines, about word choices and things like that. And every so often I'm like, I want to do that because like a lot of our job is like going, why did I pick this word or that word? Why did I not cut this word? No one ever asked questions about it. So. And this just jumped out at me because it's a thought that went in my mind. Like sometimes when you're reading something as a writer, you go, I wouldn't have written that. I would have cut that word. That word jumps out at me as a word I would have probably omitted. Not that it's wrong or right, but in my style versus theirs. So you described the sky early on as gunmetal gray, specifically gunmetal gray. Why include the word gray? Instead of just calling the sky gunmetal.
That's a darn good question.
That's my question.
I could have said gunmetal sky.
You could have called it a gunmetal sky. And I'm not saying you're wrong for saying gunmetal gray. I just immediately jumped out of my mind like that's a choice.
It is a choice, but I don't think it's a choice I made
consciously. Okay, all right.
A choice. I think I just gunmetal gray instead of gunmetal sky. Or gray. I wouldn't say gray sky because that's kind of boring. You want
gray sky. Gunmetal gray is perfectly fine. I like gunmetal gray. It's more like, again, it is like, I don't know. I think
I got that extra word. Gunmetal gray.
I mean, I think I have a tendency now that there was a period in my writing where I was like very ruthless about cutting anything that was extra, like no extra words, nothing tangential. And now like there's nothing wrong with saying gunmetal gray versus it's a gunmetal sky. They're just two different things. Neither is right or wrong, but it is like, and like I didn't necessarily expect you to know because this is a relatively long book, so it's like you're not gonna remember why you chose every word or why you wrote every single word.
In a very early part of the editing process, I cut a huge amount from this book. I cut thousands. I don't know how much I cut. 20,000 words, maybe more. I cut a lot. But then I ended up more back in. So, it's like I said, this book was this book was one of the trickiest I've written. It definitely took me the longest of all the books I've worked on. The editing process took me the longest. And a lot of that was just trying to figure out what the heck was going on and make it make sense. In my head, it made sense, but I couldn't have it make sense. I would have these conversations. I'm like, well, this is what's happening when I was talking to my editor and to earlier readers, and they're like, well, that's not really coming across on the page. On the page, and I'm like, don't you see? No, they didn't.
Yeah, I'm about to go through that myself. And it's good to know that
It's
you
hard, though.
also you are doing the same thing, so it makes me feel better. Where it doesn't ever stop, no matter how
Yeah,
many
and
books you write, how successful you are.
hard. Isn't cutting always hard? Cutting is hard, knowing what to cut and what not to cut. And I came to fiction from poetry. Like I studied poetry as an undergrad and then in grad school, and I was all about the like lovely flowery language and the metaphors and all that. And all that taught me a lot about language and metaphor and description. It didn't teach me a damn thing about plotting. So
I
that
just
was
read
all.
I just read a bunch of stuff about what a plot is. I read a very interesting couple essays about plot. It was really neat,
Oh,
really neat.
you might have to
Um,
send them to me. I could always
I'll
use more.
I'll s- I'll I
Yeah.
was just doing like kind of reading. I was reading about writing instead of actually writing,
Oh, I
and
did that
so
a lot.
I
I did that a lot.
yeah, so do I. But I was just like, and I was like, and then I don't know, that really jumped out at me. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, what is a plot? When we describe what is a plot versus what is a story versus what is, and people sometimes describe things as books. Oh, this book doesn't have a plot. And you're like, no, actually, the way they describe it's like, no, actually, that book does have a plot. It's just not what you think of as a conventional plot. Uh,
Yeah.
the note I wrote down when after all that reading was think of it the verb first. If you're plotting something, versus what it is as a noun, think of it as the verb. And if you are like, I'm plotting this book, like think of it like that, and changes the perspective of what a plot is. If
Okay.
it's
No,
the
that makes
thing, it's the thing you make the story into effectively, right? I
sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that made it make sense in my head, because it's otherwise very like you can easily veer off into like post grad like died, stuff. I'm not against it, but in my free time I'm not necessarily that interested in delving into it too deeply. Um, I think that's all my questions. We're running long on this segment anyway. And I could talk to you. Well, I still want to talk. We're still going to talk to you about rules for the ghost in a few minutes. But we'll do that in the second segment, in the second act. But people should go buy Stay Buried. It is beautiful, intricate, mystery, page turner, cover is incredible. It finally someone recognizes that horses are scary monsters. I really appreciate that as well. Um, we can move on to the second segment, where I'm going to ask you broader bookish questions,
Okay.
including a question from our last guest. And at the end of the segment, I'm going to ask you for a question for the next guest. And
Oh.
the question from our last guest, which just happens to be Clay McLeod Chapman, and
Oh man.
his question for you is: can you come up with a new writing ritual?
A new writing ritual. Oh man. Um, a new writing ritual. I don't really have a writing ritual, so I
At
feel like
all? Not none.
I mean, I always sort of wanted a writing ritual. Like I hear about writers who like, well, you know what I do? I clean my desk. I clean my desk. I clean my bulletin board. But then there are writers who like write a candle and do whatever to get started for the day. Mine is just like all over. I work in different rooms. I work at different times of the day. I'm like, I don't know. But if a new writing ritual, I want to be one of those people. You know what I want? I want like
Okay.
I want an outfit. I want a hat or a coat. I want something to physically put on my body that says, this is writing time. This is it. Okay, it's time to get down. I think I need like a really like ornate, like maybe like red velvet robe or something. And I put that on and I'm like, I am donning the writing robe. I am Jennifer the writer
Well,
now. I am
if I
going to
see
sit
it,
at my desk and
I
create
might
something magical.
I might have something for you next time we see you, Jennifer. If that's the case. We can make that happen. You asked me once about like getting you a banner. I'm like, we can make that happen, and we can also make you a red riding coat as it would be. Yeah, that's quite achievable. That's not an impossibility. I don't know. Ritual doesn't have to be like ornate or anything. It can be like I'll listen to a song or I'll tie my hair up just to get out of the way. Like that's to trigger like it's time to
Yeah,
get to work.
I don't have a thing. I don't have a thing other than just sitting. But I think I need a thing. I mean, I have tricks. If
I
I'm
don't think
having
you
a
need a
if I'm having
okay,
a
what's a
hard
trick?
I'm getting stuck, and if I'm getting stuck or I'm just not into it, I have tricks. Here's my biggest trick. This is my chicken timer. If
Oh good.
if I'm having a hard time and I don't want to work and I'd rather be doing just about anything, including like, doing the dishes or whatever, because for whatever reason the story is just not pulling me in. It's time to get out my old trusty friend, the chicken timer. And I will set the chicken timer for 20 minutes. And during that 20 minutes, I sit and I write. And it doesn't matter if I write complete nonsense. It doesn't matter if if it doesn't make sense, but I am in the world of the story and I am going. I do not look at anything online. I turn off my Wi-Fi. I put my phone away and I just concentrate. And then the dinger goes off. Okay, fine. I take a 5-minute break. I set the timer again, 5 minutes. I walk around, I shake it off. I say, where the hell is my red writing robe? And then after the 5 minutes, it dings, the timer dings, and I get back in and I set it for 20 minutes. And usually after a couple of episodes of this, I am back in the world of the story. And I am, I'm loving it. And the chicken is like, he's a serious little chicken. He means business. He's like,
I like that that's a good chicken. I really do like that chicken.
it was my mom's kitchen timer, and I took it from her kitchen after she died, and he sits on my desk. Anyway,
That's good.
That's one of the ways.
I,
That's one of the little things.
that sounds well. I hate to bring it to you. That sounds like a ritual to me. That sounds like if that's what you're like. Oh,
I guess it is. See, I have
that.
but I don't use it every time. It's a ritual for like one of the things I do.
I mean I don't know. You don't have the same ritual for everything you do in your life.
No, it's true. All right.
You change your ritual around. Yeah, it can be. I think I think that the Mohawk chicken is perfect. It counts.
It counts. It counts. And I'm also a big fan of when I get stuck, I write by hand. Are you a by hand writer? Do you ever put a lot of notes?
It has to be really dire straits if I'm writing by hand. It has to be real bad. Otherwise, it's just so slow. I get really frustrated because I have to be more frustrated in that I'm not writing versus the amount of frustration it's going to cause me to write so slow with by hand when I could type so much faster.
Yeah, it's a different process, I feel like, and I feel like it taps into some different creative part of my brain. So if I'm sitting looking at the computer and I'm not getting anywhere, I'll pull out my notebook and just do that. Doug Ford writes his whole first drafts that way, right?
I know Doug's been on this podcast and we talked about that, and I've just every time I'm like, but he was like, I mean it makes sense to me, and I'm more of a go to notebook when I'm like I do some outlining, a degree of it, and I'll use a notebook for that because it lets me, similar to your note cards, where it lets me like create a structure that I need to look at, when I'm not bound to a computer screen, which is, I don't know. I use mind mapping software sometimes on my computer as well. If I need to go into like extra dimensional space that I can't get on a notebook page is still like 2-dimensional and it has a dimension. Mind mapping, I can go as big as I possibly want and no one can stop me.
Big sheets of like newsprint, huge newsprint in my office, and I get out the colored markers and I'll do mind mapping on that. And I have I have mind mapping software on my iPad, and I do use that sometimes, but I prefer the like tactile, like pulling out the colored markers, the highlighters, and a giant newsprint, and I do that.
You should keep that stuff and auction it off. You probably make some money for that. My question I ask everybody is, who is a writer more people should be reading? And you can give me more than one name if you'd like.
Oh man, a writer more people should be reading. There's so many.
You're 100% correct. There are so many.
Who have I been reading lately? I tell everyone they need to go back and reread Shirley Jackson. And I'm always amazed by some people who haven't read Shirley Jackson or like know the lottery.
Who are these people? Which I mean, I would have like when you were like, this book is like, I didn't really think about it, but then you call out Shirley Jackson in your afterword, and I'm like, this is I think if Shirley Jackson was alive, she'd be like, man, this is a very me book. This is a very for the people out there who love Shirley Jackson, you should read Stay Buried. This book is very much a Shirley Jackson book. But if you're out there listening to this podcast and you haven't read Shirley Jackson,
Shirley Jackson, or you think and a lot of people have read like The Lottery and Haunting of Hill House, and like, okay, I've read Shirley Jackson, but they haven't read her other stuff. And I mean, every single thing she writes is amazing. And We Have Always Lived in the Castle.
We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Go read We Have Always Lived in the Castle, please.
Go read that, and and just her short story. She has a story, I think it's called Summer People. Oh my God, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's creepy stuff. Creepy.
Is that why your book is why you have winter? Is that the source of your book? Is that on purpose? Winter people, summer people? No,
I didn't. It just now occurred to me. No.
Okay, I thought. Okay, I always thought. I'm like, maybe that was on purpose. Like you're trying to make an illusion.
I wasn't, but maybe I was. Some other part of my mind.
Okay, all right.
Winter People is one of my only books that actually ended up being published with the title that was the working title throughout the whole book.
Okay.
I never.
Well, that even makes it more likely. I'm like, what? You're not doing a riff? Okay.
Yeah. I didn't.
An author more people should be reading. Shirley Jackson.
Your mind. Who knows what's going on? Who knows what connections I'm making in the back of my mind that I'm not even aware of?
That's true. Uh-oh, I just hit a key on my keyboard and now my computer's doing something. Wait. Okay, it's all fine. Another question for you. Let's talk about this. I don't want to run out of time, so I'm going to ask you about Rules for the Ghost.
Okay.
You mentioned this on a panel. We did a panel at a convention, and you mentioned Rules for the Ghost, and you gave language to something that I think most writers who are writing horror think about. Which I love that. I love having language to describe something. Like it helps me confine it and understand it. What is the Rules for the Ghost? Can you give our dear listeners what you mean when you say that? What does it mean to you?
Sure. So I got this from an editor I talked with very early on in my career, before my first book was even published. My first book, Promise Not to Tell, was a ghost story murder mystery. And one of the editors who was interested in acquiring it and ultimately passed on it had read it, and she said, Jennifer, I really love the ghost stuff. I love that it's a ghost story, but what you need here is you need rules for the ghost. She said, when does she appear? Why does she appear? Why has it been all these years since she appeared? Who can she appear to? What's her point of coming back now? What powers does she have in this world? And I was like, rules for the ghost. And I use that in almost every book I write now. Rules for the ghost, rules for the monster. If you have something weird and supernatural and otherworldly going on in there, that is great. That is awesome. I am there with you. I am there for you. I love books like that. But you have to have rules. Even if you don't spell them out on the page, you have to know them. You have to know what this creature is, what it can do, what its powers are in this world, who can see it, who can't, why is it here now, and get to know it, know its motivations, know why it's doing what it's doing, treat it like an actual character. And yeah, give your ghost some rules, and you don't need to spell it all out on the page. You need to know. You as the author need to know to make it work and to make it believable in the world of the story. Rules for the ghost.
Rules for the ghost.
Rules for the ghost. So if you're writing ghost stories or monster stories, come up with your rules.
It's that again, I think that's the thing that I kind of unconsciously understood, but having a way to describe it, just calling it Rules for the Ghost. The moment you said that, I made a note in my phone, and I still look at Rules for the Ghost once in a while. I go, remember Rules for the Ghost, Robbie.
And if I'm writing something, I'll have a separate document where I'll write rules for the ghost, rules for the underwater creature, rules for whatever, rules for whatever. I write down the rules because I need to know that they're there.
Right. It's like markers on the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that's exactly it. It's like markers on the highway.
You don't have to. You can maybe. You could swerve over them once in a while, but it's best practice not to. It's best practice to stay inside the lines.
It can still be a wild and crazy, scary ride, but
right, exactly. What is the best piece of advice you followed?
The best piece of advice I followed. it was advice I gave myself. So my first book published was actually not the
Pat
first one
yourself
I've
on
ever.
the back.
Yeah, it was so my best piece of advice, and the advice that I tell other people, is write the book you most want to read. You know, my first attempts at novel writing were what I thought other people expected of me. You know, I had gone and I had studied poetry and I was in this MFA program, so I was writing sort of quiet literary fiction with lots of metaphor and nothing really happened. They were really boring. And I sat down to write the book that would become the fourth book I wrote. And I was like, you know, I've written these three books and they're crap and they're not going anywhere. So what can I do differently? And then I thought, what's the book I most want to read? And the answer came back loud and clear: a ghost story, because that's what I loved. I loved horror. I loved ghosty stuff. I loved things that go bump in the night. I was living in a cabin in Vermont. I was terrified all the time because I'm a big scaredy pants. Um, and I wanted to incorporate all that in a novel. And I said, what's the book I most want to read? A ghost story. So I sat down and wrote that. And I think a lot of people don't ask themselves that. They don't say, what's the book that I most want to read? What's the book that only I can write? You know, that's another question
Right.
to ask.
I think that is
there in the world, and how can I put my own spin and do my own thing to it and make it my story? You know,
that is the question I think that has really the second question you asked is what's the book only you could write.
yeah,
That is that, and like that's not an easy thing to answer. Like
it's
until
not.
you've done it for a while, you don't even know, you don't know anything. You're like, I'm wandering in the darkness. But
No,
eventually that idea kind of formulates in your head. You're like, oh, this is my book.
this is my book. This
Oh,
is my, and you can say, I'm going to write a zombie story in the style of whatever, but it's my take on it. And it's my book
mhm.
and it's my thing. And I think that I hear from folks who are just starting out and maybe writing their first book. And they're looking at like what's hot in the market now, and they want to write something to that. And don't do that. Don't do that. You know, if what's hot in the market now is what you've wanted to write and what you've been reading your whole life, then yeah, go for it. But don't chase that. You know,
I
ask
mean,
yourself
it's
what excites
I,
you.
I
You
think
know, what
I
you
think
want to write.
it I think that's an instinct because people a lot of times, especially people are just starting, they read something and they love it.
Yeah,
And sometimes
yeah,
that is the hot thing because that's the book that happened to get in their hands and they love it and they go, "Oh, I want to do this.
yeah,
I'm going to write something like this." And then they write it and they realize, I mean, that's part of the process. Is you learn, you're like, "Oh, wait. This is not the author I'm going to write other things." But
yeah. And
it,
I think that's
you don't know
what
that, right? You don't know that right away.
no, what you just said is so true. It's part of the process, and finding your own voice is a process. You know, you're not going to figure it out on book one. You know, it's going to take. I feel like I learned stuff
I'm
about myself as a writer on every book. How about you? I mean, we
Oh
always
yeah, I
learn.
was gonna say I'm on like manuscript number 27, 28 or something, and now I'm just getting to. I think I'm like, oh, I'm finally have gotten to a place where I know what my voice actually is, or like what a degree of my voice actually is. I'm not even sure. Like you don't know. That's like, what is your identity? It's hard to know until you look back. I can look back 5 years ago and go, oh yeah, that's why I did that. But now
Yeah,
I don't know why. I just, we're all swimming in our own wakes, as I've
yeah.
described it.
I like
Uh,
that a lot.
that's you can have that one for free, Jennifer McMahon. Uh, I get, I mean, it's just awesome. Like again, you started this book in 2015. It's 2026 now, and it's coming out. Like you're not that same person. You're very different. That was 11 years ago.
So different. I am so different, and maybe that was why it was so damn hard to edit, because I was not the same person who wrote in. No, I was as I was. You know, when it was about to come out, my daughter just graduated from college, and she was in middle school when I started this. And she was like, "I remember you coming to writing group," because I used to do a writing group at her middle school, and I remember going into the school and like doing writing exercises, and the kids would say, "What are you working on?" And I tell them about this creepy Ackerman book, and it was all those years ago, and it's like I was a different person, the world was a different place. It's yeah.
I in 2015, I had not ever finished a manuscript.
Wow. And look at you now.
Look at me now.
Amazing.
Um, let's see. Can you recognize anything present in all of your writing, any overarching theme, character, trope, genre, things that you chase? Can you looking back relating to this, can you look back and see like this is something that is present in everything, or is it always just, it just happens? Sometimes this pops up, sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, my books always center around women, girls, kind of usually like the misfit. Often there's a difficult mother daughter relationship going on. There's a bit of that in here. Um, what else? Some kind of like magical realism elements, sometimes mystery. I want to have a mystery, and I think the reason I like to put little mysteries or big mysteries in is to help me with the plotting, because it gives me, it's like, I don't know what the plot is. Well,
Well,
it's a who done it or what the heck is going on kind of thing, but with supernatural elements.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so
I think
yeah,
most horror books have some mystery anyway. We're all,
it,
what.
absolutely, and I think people don't always realize that, but they do. Like, what is happening
Yeah.
here? What's going on? Atmosphere, like setting, is huge in all my books. Most of my books are set in Vermont, but I am just a sucker for like the dark, creepy woods and small, isolated towns and all that. So those are the things.
When do we get a Florida book from Jennifer McMahon?
I am playing with a book right now. God knows when it'll come out. It might be 10 years. I don't know. But part of it is set in Florida, and we'll
Okay,
see.
good.
We'll see what happens with it. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So
That's good to hear. We'll do one more question before we move on. Now, what is that one question, though? That's the question. The question is, what's the question? You already answered that one, basically. Here, we'll do a really big question.
oh boy. Okay, I'm ready.
What is one prediction you have for the future of publishing?
Oh, a prediction I have for the future of publishing. I think that nothing is what it's hard. I need to get my crystal ball out. I feel like every time I think I start to have somewhat of an understanding of the publishing industry, everything shifts and changes. I love some of the shifts and changes. I love seeing all the small presses. I love seeing all the self-published folks. Self-publishing is huge. There's some great stuff out there. You know that. And I think maybe people are going to start taking that more seriously. I don't know. That's what I'd like to see anyway. And
I
yeah.
I think that's I mean that's the fun of this question, is that it doesn't matter what you say. We don't know, and no one knows. We'd have to get the crystal ball out. But you're probably gonna.
Yeah, I remember when it was like, we don't know. I remember when my first contract had like an ebook thing in it, and I was like, "What is this? What does this mean?" And I remember my agent saying, "We don't know what's really going to happen with this, but and I mean, look at the way." Yeah, anyway,
I know.
who knows?
I mean, I would say that you're probably going to be more accurate than what the, let's say, traditional publishers expect to happen, because they seem to be always wrong. They don't see they keep lagging behind. And I think when you say about indie and small press and self-published people, is like it's more agile, more able to adapt, quicker to adapt than the big mammoth, obelisks that are the big five, where they're like they take them a very long time to adjust to market trends, and it takes them years to shift and change course, while people who are on the ground, boots on the ground, so to speak, they see something coming, they can get out of the way.
No, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just glad you didn't say anything about AI. I really appreciate that. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to talk. I don't want to.
We don't have a whole other hour. Check.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. It takes too much. It takes up too much space.
Okay.
What's your question for our next guest?
Oh man, my question for our next guest. What is the book you are most afraid to write?
Ooh, that's a good question. Man, you
Yeah,
should do this. You should be a host of this show. That's a good question. I might steal that question for future guests as well, because that's a really good question.
absolutely.
Because it'll bring that gets
Yeah.
like interesting answers out of people. Like, oh, I'm afraid to write this one.
I'm afraid to write this one. I'm afraid to write. Yeah.
We can move on to our final segment. It is time for blood. It's time for blood. It's very dramatic. It's time for hardship, for struggle, for trouble, for something that for be it, let's see, nuts and bolts, ethos, philosophy, marketing, social media, business. Let's see. Recently, we have discussions about AI. We've had discussions about imposter syndrome, lots of imposter syndrome lately, but it could be anything, and it's in hopes that you've gone through something, and us talking about it will help someone out there who's probably also going through whatever this thing is, because we don't talk about the trouble as much as we talk about our successes on the internet, because
Yeah.
we what do you have? What is something you've gone through recently or in the recent past that you are comfortable talking about on a
Sure.
podcast?
Oh, there's so many things. I think that I'm gonna go back to the because of the way I work, right? So I'll start a book, I'll get partway through, or I'll get a whole draft done, and I'll say this is complete crap, and that's a problem, right? That's a
It
struggle.
is it is a
Or
problem.
I'll show it to someone like Drea or my agent or someone, and they won't necessarily say that's complete crap, but they'll say,
Yeah.
and that happens more often than I would like to admit. It happens to me a lot. I write something and it's not there. It happened with this book. I wrote it, it was like it was just not there. And so you put it away, right? I am a big proponent of putting things away. And sometimes I run into the problem of like, even in this book, I had a character who was cut, who I really liked. But we cut him and he turned out to not be important at all. But I cut him but I saved him, right? So I'm a big fan of saving things, saving beginnings, saving. I run into this problem, I'm stuck, things aren't going well, you put it away, you let it like compost, you let it.
I like
don't
that.
know.
That's
Let it sit there. And I have this really flaky belief that when you give an idea life by writing it down, like you start this idea, you like, oh, this is so great, I'm so excited. And you give it life, you write it down, and then you put it away, it acts as a magnet for other ideas. And then maybe it helps eventually, maybe years later, maybe a month later, maybe weeks later, it will draw what it needs to it. So put it down and walk away, do something else for a little while. And it's a constant struggle I have, like learning something and not knowing what the hell is going on with it. But if you were to look at my laptop and see all the like beginnings of novels that haven't gone anywhere, and like even halfway through, and I've got several rough drafts, like entire drafts of books that are just feel like crap and feel like something big is missing, and I don't know what that is yet, and I need to trust that maybe eventually I'll figure it out. Maybe, I don't know. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating. I spent a year of my life working on this book, and then it's like, oh, it's shit. What do? I just have to put it away. There goes a year of my life. I should be putting out books. This is how I make my living. Like it's not
right.
Yeah. So.
I would say that you're doing great. You're doing great, Jennifer McMahon. I have a bunch of your books. This one is this one is might be my favorite, honestly. I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about it. Like I finished it like 2 days ago, so I need to like process things a little bit. But I haven't read all your books, but I've read enough of them to like, I don't know, that it doesn't feel half baked. It feels like fully formed and complete and almost like very like well crafted. Like that's the thing. It's like it's like very crafted, very like bespoke, and I can feel the work you put into it. I guess I don't know how to describe it, but I don't know. I also have 5 manuscripts in my computer right now, I think, that are not published, and a couple of those I don't think are ever going to get published. They're not very good. But I think I don't know. I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's sometimes frustrating because you spend a lot of time on them, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, like through this whole like spiral, like, well, maybe this means I'm a crap writer, and yeah.
Oh,
Imposter
I was gonna say the imposter syndrome strikes again.
That's a big thing. Yeah.
You're not are you kidding me? You're a crap writer? Are you kidding me? You're
I
not
mean,
this is
inevitably, so when I get at least halfway through every book, I hit the wall and I like come out of my office like in tears, and I'll tell Drea and my daughter Zella like, "Oh, this is it. I'm washed up. I can't write anymore. I can't
I'm
do this anymore."
washed.
It's just gone. The magic is gone. It's left me.
I don't.
They just
I
shake their heads and they're like, "Just come on, go." You know,
I'm washed up.
I'm
You're
like,
not.
it's
That's
it's
here. This is the beauty of writing. The beauty of being a writer, a professional writer, is like versus let's say like a football player is at a certain you know you do have a physical peak when like you can't take tackles anymore. But writers, we can go
we
forever,
can keep
like
going.
literally
Yeah, we
until our
just have to
brain falls out of our head.
Yeah, we just have to stop feeling sorry for ourselves and get our butts back in the chair, get an extra cup of coffee, and just get it. You know, get out the chicken timer and get those words on the page.
Get out the chicken timer. I do love the chicken timer. I use a timer. I just use a digital timer, but it's the same principle. I also use focus frogs. I like a focus frog.
I don't know what that is. A
A
focus
focus
frog?
frog. Well, here I can send you focus frogs if you really want to, and maybe you'll like it. You like you've described liking tangible like paper and coloring and that kind of
Okay.
thing. A focus frog is just it's like a little drawing of a frog. On each sheet of them has 4 different frogs, and each frog has 4 segments. And every time you would set your timer, and after you finish writing one of your lengths of time on your timer, if you were successful in that you did it, I sat down and write, you color in a piece of the frog.
Okay,
And
I
after
love
and and after 4 segments, after you've done this 4 times, you have a full frog. And then if you do that 16 times, you have 4 full frogs. You have a full sheet of frogs. And then you
oh,
keep doing that over and over and over again until you have a book.
that's what, see,
until
I will make like a little wheel with quarters and I'll color in the quarter and I'll be happy, you know, when I do my wheel, and then I'll do my other wheel. But the frog is so much better. I need
I'll
focus
send you
frogs.
I'll send you my sheet of focus frogs. You can just print out frogs, and then you just print them out as much as you need. And I have a little highlighter, and I'll color, and I'm like, oh, this will be a pink frog. This will be my green frog. Yeah,
Oh
very
man,
cute.
I love it,
But that's
Robbie.
those are when you're talking about like the doldrums in the middle of a book. That's when the focus frogs come out. That's when I need the frog.
Yeah.
We need my boy. I mean you had described. I mean like I think it was years ago when we did when I first met you, and it was our first signing together, and you were like, yeah, I have a book and it's been hell. And you were like, I think you were near the end of getting it ready. It was almost ready, but you were talking about it's been hellish. I hate it. It's been torment. Um, but I don't see that in this book. You know, it just feels like a great story told well. You know, and I
I
think
mean,
that's the
it turned
that.
out great. I do, and I feel good about it, and I'm really happy that it's out in the world. It was just the process of getting it there was like
Well, the next one won't be so bad.
we'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I'm so grateful that like it's actually done and it's about to go out in the world, and I can't wait for people
I
to
mean,
check it out. And
is this the hardest one is this the hardest process you've gone through for any of your books?
yeah, it is. It is, and I think maybe part of it was because it took so long, and because the me who wrote that first original draft is so different. You know, you pointed that out. Like I'm a totally different person, and I think you hit on something there. I think maybe that was why it was so hard, because it took so long, and because there were so many different versions of me working on this book. You know, maybe that had something to do with it.
You have to reconcile all those identities.
It's a really complicated book. It's a complicated book, and I had to
It
figure out
is.
what's going on.
I'm it's very impressive. Like, but it's also as a person who's working on something that is sort of dual narrative, dual timeline
Yeah.
mystery going on. It was actually really helpful to read because it gives me a little bit of like an idea of like, okay, this is about pacing. And but I asked a question about like how do you get information out to your reader at the right amount of time, and what do you keep back, what do you hold, what do you give, and I don't know. It's that question of like, well, how do I? Well, it's not that there's like I know how to do it, but it's more like what's the best way for this book. It's not even like necessarily what the right way is, because that's right is we flew out the window a long time ago. This is all subjective art.
And sometimes it's not even just the right thing for this book. It's like, what's the right way to end this chapter or this particular to solve this particular little
Yeah.
conundrum I have. And yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's,
I'll get there. It's doing it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Look at this. You have given me hope.
it's
We're on out of time.
Okay.
Thank you. No, you're good. I sometimes no, you don't have to be quiet. I'm about to ask you actually to talk, so you have to do that. So before we go, there's a few things I need you to do for me. The first thing I need is we are going to manifest something for your near to intermediate future. Something in the not 10 years from now, but in the next year or two. What is something you'd like to happen in your career, and you will speak it out loud, and it will happen because that is what we do here.
I would like to write the next book and have it actually come out within the next 1 to 2 years. I would like to have it not take a 10-year process.
Okay.
That's what I would like to have happen.
Okay. I think
where I was on a book a year. I know that doesn't sound like much when I hear how many books you've done. And for a little while, I was doing a book a year, and that felt good. And I would love to get back on that book a year train. That said, the book that I'm currently working on that I think might be my next book, we'll see, is probably the most complicated thing I've ever done. Way more complicated than Stay Buried. Way more.
Wow.
Way more.
Okay.
I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a book I've wanted to write my whole life for many, many years, and like have told myself I'm not a good enough writer to pull it off. But I'm gonna try to pull it off.
Well,
I'm gonna try. And if not now, then when? Let's do it.
This is we already talked today about the book you're afraid to write, the book that only you can write, and you just said you want to get it out in a year or two. I think that it means it's going to happen.
All right, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Now the next thing I need from you is for you to tell our dear listeners where you would like them to buy the book. Obviously, you can get Stay Buried pretty much anywhere, but where would you prefer them to buy it, and where can they follow you on the internet?
All right. Go to your favorite local independent bookseller, wherever you may live. That's where I would prefer you to buy it. If you don't have one nearby, then it's available wherever you usually buy your books. So yeah, check it out wherever books are sold. Where can people find me on the internet? I am on Instagram. I think it's Jennifer McMahon Writes. I have a Facebook page, which might also be Jennifer McMahon Writes. I wasn't prepared for this, Robbie. I'm somewhere out there. I'm somewhere out there.
I believe that you are Jennifer McMahon Writes on Instagram. I believe you're Jennifer McMahon Books on Facebook. You
are absolutely correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just read it. I read it at the end of Stay Buried, which helped. I think that's why it's on top of mine. I read the little thing at the end of the book that told me that.
I have a website that will take you to those things, and it's Jennifer-McMahon MCMAHON.com, and it will tell you where to go and give. There will probably be links, and also links to where you can buy Stay Buried too. And you can. I'll start trying to do Substack, which is my newsletter, so you can sign up for that there too.
I will put a link to all that stuff in our show notes as well. Hopefully, our listeners can also just Google your name and a book and find you. It's really maybe I'm too audacious in people's internet skill and the ability to find and locate people, but you're definitely the most famous Jennifer McMahon author out there, so I would hope that they would be able to find you and follow you if they're not doing so already. That'll do it for us. Thank you, Jennifer, for being on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Robin. This was so fun.